Right, yeah. So I've got a mindful reflection for us, and hopefully it'll be interesting for the audience as well. I think it's quite a um, and this is based on my own personal experience in my mindfulness journey and the journey that I'm still on. And I always caveat all of this with the fact that I'm certainly no enlightened master. I am very much on the journey through mindfulness daily, and I haven't unfortunately found enlightenment as yet, but I do consider myself to be in a much better mental headspace as a result of my ongoing practice and my ongoing development. So this is a reflection based on that experience and some of the observations, mindful observations perhaps, that I've been making. And so the question is, and it's a question, a reflection for ourselves, is, are we being mindful of thoughts, or are we simply thinking mindfully? So are we being mindful of thoughts, or are we simply thinking mindfully? And that's something that, yeah, I've been thinking of on and off, and catch myself, I think, doing quite regularly. And I love your views. I'll open to you guys first with that question placed, and then we'll see where we go. So I don't know who wants to kick off with any thoughts on that. And if you think it's a rubbish question, that's fine as well. We could have our
It's a
first
great question, by the way.
mindful argument.
It's the question of the question of the questions.
Excellent.
Avanti, did you want me to go, or yeah, you wanna?
Oh, absolutely. Go ahead.
Okay. I think I saw your kind of brief discussion on the chat also. It was interesting. I just didn't have time to put it into writing. It's quite interesting. I want to bringing in again the non-religion part of the Buddhism, the middle way, right? And the discussion of middle way, there's two terms. One is ultimate truth, one is relative truth, right? There are other names, but let's use these two. The ultimate truth, we know mindfulness sometimes is called awareness. It actually quite resonate this Buddhism. The highest level of enlightenment is have that awareness, but in the meantime, there is no thoughts. Sometimes, in the Buddhism term is called fabrication, no fabrication, right? What is fabrication? Fabrication is to have the notion of yes, no, right? And then the other two sides is yes or no, or none of each, right? So both, neither, right? Yes, no, both, neither, right? Other than that, there's no way for human beings' logic to go further, right? So when we say the mindful of thoughts, or like thinking of mindfulness, I think the thinking of mindfulness is on the relative side, right? And then the true awareness or mindful of thoughts is on the ultimate side, which is all of us as a practitioner of mindfulness. That's our goal. We probably, there is a path, right? There's not such thing as all of a sudden you are to the ultimate level, right? There's only awareness, then there is no thinking of mindfulness. I don't know so far if that makes sense. Because one time there was a master, when we talk about this ultimate truth and relative truth, he said, whatever we're talking is relative truth because we're talking, right? When there's no fabrication, there's not even supposed to be thinking, right? There's no supposed to be thinking. It's kind of more inexpressible state. Yet, in order to get there, you still have to have this kind of discussion, understanding, and then practice, and then get into the that state, right? I probably can see maybe two analogies, if that makes sense. The relative, again, is like a boat. We want to cross the river, get to the other side, right? And once you get to the other side, is like to reach like the pure mindfulness, you have to dump that boat. You can't carry that. If you carry that boat, you're not mindful. One other analogy is, I wonder if you guys watch Bruce Lee. Bruce Lee used this example also. Hey, the moon, that's the moon, right? I'm pointing to the moon. This is my finger. Don't look at my finger. Look at that moon. I think same thing. Finger is necessary because most of us, if not all of us, you can't see the moon, right? You need something or somebody to have that finger pointing to the moon so we can find it. However, when you look at the moon, and then it's not supposed to be the finger. Hopefully I confused everyone enough. Thank you.
I like that. I like that. It was very helpful. And I think that's the real, again, the challenge, the conundrum with teaching mindfulness and exploring mindfulness is because you have to use language.
Yes.
And actually that's the essence of what you're trying to not attach to. So you're having to use thought concepts and language to try and encourage people to not attach to those things.
Correct. But sorry to cut through. Getting to the ultimate is not like, maybe that example is not, example is an example. It cannot be always perfect. It's not supposed to dump the language. I wanted to use another example. It's like the landing gear of an airplane, right? You have to have that landing gear, those wheels, in order to fly. When you fly, you retract the landing gear, right? If you have that, you can't not fly freely. However, the landing gear is there, is necessary in order even to get there.
Yeah, absolutely. And I love the boat analogy. I mean, it is as simple as that, where we say that becoming an observer of what thoughts show up in our mind. I mean, we're first of all, through the practice of mindfulness in the beginning, we are creating a separation from thoughts, aren't we? Where we say, let's look at our thoughts as an observer, as if we're sitting in a movie theater, where we can then say, oh, that's one thought about my dinner. That's another thought about what I did through the day. So we are learning as step one to simply separate from our thought, because we are not our thought. Our awareness is different from the thoughts that show up on that movie screen. And so what we want to do ultimately, and through this series, I hope we get there, where we say, let's become awareness ourselves. Let's just show up as awareness without the stories, without the judgment, and just being in the moment purely, the way we are showing up in the current moment. And that is the ultimate truth, where we say we're enlightened, Lorian, and me neither, join the gang. We're all here trying to get to that ultimate phase of enlightenment, where they say is the no thought state. They say the ultimate enlightened masters have no thought. So for us to get to there, the island, we have to take the boat of becoming an observer and then throw that boat aside if we have to reach there. So that is where we practice being that awareness at all given points of time as much as possible. Say, what can I show up as right now without thought?
Laurie, you said we don't have argument, right? So here's one.
Okay, let's do this.
Yeah, enlightened masters. This is my the version that I have heard, right? No thoughts is just still in the middle level, still on the path,
Okay.
right? Because when the pursuing of no thoughts, there is some kind of pressure there, right? I can't have thoughts. I can't have thoughts. Actually, there's a Zen master. He is actually the actual one that started. It's called the Sixth Patriarch. Started the Chinese Zen tradition, the actual one. There were Indian ones, but he was considered to be the one. He actually had a something like a poem, like a verse. He said, "I'm not that capable because I cannot cut off my thoughts." That was actually pretty deep. Right? The further step, you can still have thoughts, but you don't have the, let's see, the discern or attachment of, thoughts, no thoughts, ultimate relative, right? They're simply there, or a oneness kind of thing. So thoughts are allowed, but there's no attachment, no those.
You're saying we're pretty much enlightened already then.
By work, right?
The way
There you have it, folks.
When
We're done. Thanks very much.
Yeah, when we think we're enlightened, we're not.
Because that's a thought again. There you go. Absolutely.
No, that's good, and that's good, Oliver, because I agree for what it's worth, and again from a non-enlightened perspective, that I mean, there's nothing wrong with thoughts. It's getting lost to them. It's being attached to them. It's losing yourself to the movie theater of the mind and going on that sort of autopilot that your thoughts take you on. And we don't want to be, thoughts evolve for a reason. And I think if we try and stop them, we're doing something very, very unhelpful from an evolutionary perspective. So that's interesting. Thank you. I mean, just something I want to add to this, and thank you both for the discussion, because it's been really good and I'm really pleased we had it. And I think there's a lot more we can talk about around this, to be honest with you. I think we could probably spin another episode just based on this. Is that actually thinking mindfully, right? So having more mindful thoughts rather than being mindful of thoughts is not a bad thing, right, per se. Yeah. And actually, because again, this is from my own personal experience as well, is that my mindfulness journey has really helped me recondition my thoughts, is the term that I use. So I used to have a lot of very, very depressive thoughts, and I still have occasional depressive thoughts, because again, there's nothing wrong with a particular thought or a particular thought, pattern, as long as you don't get stuck in it. But it's certainly reconditioned my thoughts. I have a lot less negative thoughts and I spend a lot less time with them, and that's been super helpful. So I think the sort of having more mindful thoughts, whilst not being the end goal, and could be something that you could distract yourself and you could get lost in that, right? Because you're thinking mindfully, you've just reconditioned your thoughts. Just like if you focus on anything, you learn any new skill, right? You practice it enough, it becomes more habit, right? So it's exactly the same as what we do with our thoughts. It's the core of CBT, right? Cognitive behavioral therapy, isn't it? It's reconditioning your thoughts, challenging the negative thoughts which aren't helpful, and essentially replacing them effectively with a more positive thought pattern. So the same principle with mindfulness. If you're thinking mindfully, then that in itself is probably better than the default habit of the brain, which is to be thinking, neurotically and angrily and all these other unhelpful patterns that we have. So anyway, but yeah, that was just an aside on the benefits of thinking mindfully, even though, again, you might not want to be stuck in that place. But if you do get stuck there, it's probably better than where you were before. So well done.
Yeah, can I just add one word on that? I think there's a way to look at it is the thinking part. We can see it as a view, where we need to have the right view, because if you have the wrong view and then you start to practice, you don't know, go somewhere. You don't know where you go, right? Having the right view, and then the mindfully being conscious, right, on thoughts, that's the practice, right? Practice, you be a beginner, maybe a very versed already, but that's the practice, view and practice. Maybe this is also a way that we can look at it.
We can look at it, absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
What an interesting discussion. And I think if we decide, we should probably pick it up again on another episode. But that is, I think it's gotten us to a good start.
Mm-hmm.